Honourable Speaker, Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Cabinet colleagues and Assistant Ministers, and also Honourable Members of Parliament that are still here. First and foremost, I want to say that I rise to absolutely commend the 2021 national budget that was presented by the Honourable Attorney General Minister of Economy. Honourable Speaker, this budget is the most important budget in the history of our nation. In the history of our nation. Not only the history of the last 10 years, or since independence, but the history of our nation. Last night I was reading back at Ratu Thakumbau's government. Then I was reading back at the first colonial government. And I was reading back and reading forward till the Honourable, the late Turanga Tuneau's government. And I was reading at some of the things that happened through the 1987 and the coup by the then leader of the opposition. I remember it very well because I was a student in Lautoka, and my parents, their salaries were both deducted by 20%. And we had families from our family that came and lived with us because they were struggling. And it was a difficult time because we were all struggling during that time. So I can actually see the importance of maintaining the salaries of our civil servants. Because during these difficult times, they will be supporting their family members. And you can imagine what they would be feeling if they went through what I went through and my brothers and sisters went through when my parents' salaries were deducted. Having said that, Honourable Speaker, I also want to acknowledge my grandmother who was unwell recently. She's 98, and my cousin called me to say that she will be listening in tonight. So, Mbui, thank you. I think it's your bedtime also, so you can go to bed now. And also want to just acknowledge those who are also on social media and Team Fiji on Twitter that are hearing in tonight. Honourable Speaker, I want to begin by just beginning to rebut some of the statements that were said before. First and foremost is that famous door. Honourable Tigundiondo, that door was repaired. And if it's recently bad, then I wouldn't know that. But I can tell you this, that door was repaired. And that block that's there is left there because sometimes when patients enter in, they need to keep the door ajar in case the patient runs into the problem so they can be able to call. I only worry that you nearly took a photo of a naked patient inside the bathroom. And I wish that next time you intend to take a photo inside the hospital, you will follow the normal routine by going to see the medical superintendent and saying you want to take a picture. That medical superintendent is your kind. He's from Wenimbuka, Dr. Luke Center. It is only ethical and morally important that you visit him and say you want to take a picture. Please don't do that next time. Honourable Speaker, we also have to remember, we will fix the door if it's bad again, but it was fixed. Honourable Speaker, we also know that with COVID-19, we've had those cases, and Fiji was the 163rd case. Now, we also have to remember that during that time, there were challenges already in China, and we know that a lot of consumables and drugs that are manufactured in this place, there were already major disruptions to the supply chain of pharmaceuticals. Honourable Speaker, there was an inevitable global shortage followed suit. We were quite fortunate that we were able to act quickly and coordinate with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Fiji missions abroad to assist in approaching contracted wholesalers who released and sent out equipment and medical supplies that we already had purchased. I would like to give an example. Due to the diligence and resilience, we had the dialysis machines that we had purchased from Australia, arranged for shipment from the kidney transplant and the kidney transplant drugs from Sydney Airport to Auckland Airport in a week, then finally shipped to Nadi Airport with the assistance of our customs team at the border. During this time, the supply of leptospirosis diagnostic kits and dengue kits remained available at our health facilities. Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Geringera Tamboa, in her global diarrhea during today's session, mentioned that there was issues with cervical cancer tests because of pap smears not being available. That again is a lie. it's misleading Parliament. We have several ways of doing cervical cancer testing. We use pap smear, which is both an automated or a manual method, and the new machine that we had bought had run into problems. It was during the time of guarantee, and the company that is based out of New Zealand was wanting us to pay an amount of 35,000 New Zealand dollars, which we didn't have to. So we sought legal redress, and they were told that they had to pay. So they came across and they repaired that. But in that meantime, we used the manual method. Apart from that, we use VIA. I will not say what it stands for because it sounds gross. But we also use colposcopy and biopsy. So the women were not compromised during that time. And the machine has been fixed, and the thin prep for this will be available and I've been told by the beginning of August, which is about a week away. Honourable Speaker, the proposed budget of 394 million is more than the 347 million. I was told by our Director of Finance and Administration that about more than 95% of our present budget has been used up, including those in our, because we've been using it, as you know, because of our normative functions that we need to be able to do. But also the COVID-19 budget has been very helpful in being able to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. It will be remiss of me without first and foremost, Honourable Speaker, helping us to understand what COVID-19 has done to the health services of our people and also the region. As we speak, there's more than 16 million people worldwide that's got the disease and 650,000 deaths. The epicenter of the disease is in the Americas, but we are seeing it beginning to take off in countries around us. And recently, we've seen the exponential rise in Papua New Guinea, including its first confirmed death. Honourable Speaker, we have 27 cases, 18 cases initially with community transmission within these clusters, and then we've had 9 cases that are quarantine border cases, that are cases that were coming back. They are likely to have received the virus when they left, when they came from India, and they are in quarantine in Nandi and also now at the moment in Lotoko Hospital. Honourable Speaker, the world health systems are struggling with the pandemic response. They are not only struggling, but we are seeing high morbidity and mortality numbers. Hospital and health facilities have become the center of disease outbreaks, which have led to instances of close of hospitals and health facilities. Honourable Speaker, it's been estimated in one of my readings recently that about 500 people in old people's homes in Australia are vulnerable and at risk with COVID-19. So we have to understand that this is the extent to which COVID-19 is placing pressure and pressure points on the health systems and ultimately on the normal workings of any country or any region. The support systems for health that deal with production and supply chain for medical equipment, medicines, and medical supplies initially was severely paralyzed and continue to be partially paralyzed at times. Honourable Speaker, for us in Fiji, we are grateful to the decisive leadership of the Honourable Prime Minister, supported by my senior colleagues in the Attorney General and the Minister for Economy, the members of Cabinet, Assistant Minister, and the caucus. We've been able to effectively tackle the disease when it reaches our shores, again with effective guidance that were given to the officials, which are the civil servants, which are then be able to carry out the strategies of government. And those strategies are being talked about now in the global spaces. As I've said in my earlier speeches, WHO, our development partners have been asking us to share about what we've been able to do. The Global Alliance on Vaccine Implementation or Initiative, Gavi, which is supported mostly by the United Kingdom, asked the Honourable Prime Minister to speak about our response, and he asked me to do it on his behalf. And I spoke about our response. And they wrote back to say that after that, they were able to gather quite a few $1 billion worth of support from all around the world to the Global Alliance Initiative for the immunization, for the vaccine for COVID-19. So you can see the importance that we are now beginning to play in this area of COVID-19 around the region, around the world, because they are beginning to see how effectively we've been able to control it and take hold of it. And we've been strong in the 6 pillars that I talked about before: the strong and effective border control measures, the multi-agency contact tracing and quarantine enforcement, and now the app that is in place, the comprehensive communication and awareness strategy, the strengthening of our health service, facilitated by the supplementary budget and the specific budget for COVID-19, and the support of our partners, donors, and friends. And the commitment, love, and patriotism of all Fijians who stepped up and stepped forward in the effort to support government as we face COVID-19 pandemic threat. Honorable Speaker, we did not stop there. We continued, we worked on. So initially we bought and received 14 new ventilator machines, which we distributed into the new ICU, new COVID-19 ICUs in Lotoka, Lambasa, Suva, that were necessary for those that may require ICU. We've also bought another extra 50 ventilators. These have been prepaid for sum of more than $4 million. The first 5 will receive in the middle of next month to be able to build again the capacity of our intensive care units. Honorable Speaker, we received 80 donated humidified high flow AVO machines from the New Zealand government, but we trained our staff and purchased the consumables to be compatible with these machines. We bought about 50 hospital beds at about $60,000. Honorable Speaker, we've continued to buy the necessary equipment specifically for COVID-19, which is more than $2 million in supplying and also supporting our frontline staff and again, purchase of other things that are important. Honorable Speaker, it's not, doesn't even include the fact that we've had to pay staff that are now put across to the COVID-19 fight. So that's all within that budget. It will continue with the budget that we now have in place for COVID-19 in the 2021 budget. Honorable Speaker, during this time, we also fought the measles outbreak. And I've said it before, we had 100.14% of the target population in children and 94% of the target population in adults immunized. And we purchased the vaccines that were used and mobilized 760 health staff to implement this exercise. We then also had in that span of 5 months, we had the 3 cyclones. They were namely TC Sarai, Tino, and then severe tropical cyclone Harold. For that, Honorable Speaker, we mobilized our health staff all over the country to be able to provide health screening and treatment and provide the protective health measures that were important. Honorable Speaker, if we look at the last 3 decades, and if we look at how we have been continuing to improve, and then recently within the last decade, we can see that we are beginning to achieve our Sustainable Development Goal targets. Let me share a few. Honorable Speaker, for maternal mortality rate, the SDG target is 70 per 100,000. We are now at 35.6. Neonatal mortality rate, the SDG target is 12 by 2030, we are at 12.2. Honorable Speaker, we are also pushing out into the community, and this we will continue in the next financial year because of the support that's provided into our public health component. We are working with community stakeholders in terms of the WASH aspect, but also making sure that we prevent the other communicable disease. We've had many of those that we've been involved with saying how fortunate they were to be able to see the support that's coming through from the Minister of Health, working hand in hand with other stakeholders in government. Honorable Speaker, the $25 million that's been allocated to the COVID-19 response will be used to strengthen and support the multi-agency incident management team in supporting the public health response in the health and economic recovery phases we're in. It will be used to procure infection control items such as hand gels, masks, aprons, and PPEs required for our frontline staff in the management of COVID-19 cases or suspected cases. Support the running of the fever clinics, the ICUs, the HDUs, facilitate our risk communication activities, support the FEMAT capability which will be required if there is future waves of infection in the community, and support the quarantine costs to continue in its critical role to safely manage returning Fijians and permit holders. Honourable Speaker, I also want to talk a little bit about the support for overseas treatment. If Mr. X is a cardiac patient sponsored by government for overseas treatment abroad for his heart condition, and he was accompanied by Mrs. X, and they earned less than 30,000 a year. After successful treatment in hospital, they were tested for COVID-19 and allowed to travel back to Fiji with a negative result. Before entering Fiji, they already knew they must go into quarantine for 14 days. On arrival, they disembarked in one of the small groups, met by our border control team, checked for symptoms, directed for admission to our quarantine facility. The screening cost of filling their supplementary health arrival card and health officials taking their temperature readings and other information such as special dietary requirements. They then underwent normal immigration custom processes. Their luggage were disinfected. Once they picked up their luggage, the health and RFMF personnel briefed them on the quarantine procedures rules. They were tagged and told which hotels they were allocated, and they were transported to the designated quarantine facility using government designated vehicles. During the quarantine period of 14 days, they are checked daily by our quarantine team that comprised the health and military personnel. The full cost of quarantine for COVID-19 is borne by government. On the same trip, Mr. Z was also part of the returning passengers who had gone to India for heart operation, but paid for by his medical insurance scheme. The whole process he undergoes, including his quarantine period, that's all paid for by government. Honourable Speaker, for the welfare of our frontline staff, the budget will enable the ministry to also provide counselling support for our frontline team as they deal with the challenging task of caring for potential COVID-19 cases at the border. Honourable Speaker, we also have to realize that if we don't get any severe cases of COVID-19, we are able to redirect the use of equipment and supplies for those patients who urgently need them. As I've alluded to, the airborne machines, we started to use them for severe cases of typhoid and leptospirosis in our intensive care units. And also the ventilator machines, if ultimately they are not needed, they can be then used for our normative functions in looking after those who are very sick. Honourable Speaker, we began to also remodel our health service provision based on the universal health coverage. We've looked at our strategic plan and also the National Development Plan, which is 20 years, and the 5-year strategic plan. What we then realized is that all over the world, WHO guidance, they are all talking about decentralizing services, ensuring that you're working in a way that the health systems or the health centers, the hospitals, don't become the epicenter of the disease. And this is actually put upon us the idea to quicken that targets that are in place. And this budget will allow us to do that, Honourable Speaker. It will help us to decentralize quicker and even more. And as we speak, we're beginning to see specialists, and the Honourable Assistant Minister talked about it today, the specialists being asked to go and do clinics into health centres and subdivisional hospitals. Honourable Speaker, as we speak today, the consultant pediatrician or child doctor at CWM Hospital, Dr. Elisabeth Tumbanga, and her registrar, Dr. Torika, are currently in Lakemba, looking at children in Lakemba, and also looking at those children in islands around Lakemba that may have heart diseases. Honourable Speaker, beginning on the 5th of August, Nandi Hospital will provide pediatric, obstetric and gynecological, internal medicine specialist care to the people that access Nandi Hospital for health services, and this will be supported by weekly visits from specialists from Loto Hospital. Honourable Speaker, about a month ago, the emergency departments within Valileve and Nosori are being run by the emergency specialists at CWM Hospital. Now, as the Honourable Assistant Minister has also said, Makoi and Nosori maternity units are now being run by the obstetrics and gynecology department at CWM. We also intending to set up incident management team like divisional and subdivisional command centers in our health division, and the provision of this budget will be able to allow us to do that. Honourable Speaker, the 105 new doctors and the 200 nurses and 40 midwives will complement the staff that we have. We have now in Fiji about 1,450 doctors. Those 1,450 doctors puts our doctor to population ratio at 1:1.5, which is a great number, which is a good number. Honorable Speaker, this has happened because consistently over the last 6 to 7 years, this government has continued to increase the number of scholarships, increase the positions within the service, more importantly, increase the salaries of health staff to be able to retain them. And one of the reasons why we've been able to fight this fight well also is because with the open merit system that we have in place, allows us to have the best people available to be able to fight the fight that we have. For example, like Dr. Chemesa, Dr. Alicia, the acting permanent secretary we have at the moment, Dr. James Wall, they are there on merit. They are there on merit. And that's allowed us to be able to do what we're able to do. I would like to finish with this thought, Honorable Speaker. There were suggestions from the other side of the floor that we live within our means. Our current health budget salary bill, enrollment bill for Seg 1 and Seg 2 is 202 million. If we were to live within our means and the forecast revenue is 1.8 billion, we know that 10% of the budget is for health. That means that the Ministry of Health in this next 2021 budget will only have 180 million. We will not be able to protect this nation in our normative functions and also with COVID-19 with 180 million. We need the 395 million. And that's what this 2021 budget has done. Honorable Speaker, I highly commend this budget to the House and I fully support it, Honorable Speaker.